Welcome to the second tutorial for Photoshop 2020. Today we will be making a collaged human face out of many different images. We're going to learn how to copy pictures from the internet, paste them into Photoshop, and use the rectangular and circle marquee tool. I've already started making a new document. And for this one, I'm going to give you a specific width and height to start with, and we can always crop down later. For height, I want you to type in 1280, and for width, I want 720. When we hit create, we can see we have an image that is a bit taller than it is wide. Next thing we're going to do is we need to collect some images from the internet, and we're going to be collaging a human face. I thought it'd be great fun to make a face out of all the Steves that I could find. So I've got a Steve Irwin, a Steve Buscemi,
Steve Buscemi.
I got Steve Carroll, and I even have a Stone Cold Steve. Once I have my images selected and picked out, I want you to have 5 images. We can right-click an image and copy image. Then going back to Photoshop, we can paste that image in with Control V. Notice that the image appears, and then over in the layers, notice that it made a new layer. We can rename these layers if we feel the need. This one's going to be my Irwin. Switching back to my web page, I'm going to grab my next image. I'm going to right-click copy and then come back to Photoshop and paste. Notice, once again, it has made itself on a new layer. Once again, I'm going to rename it because it'll help me keep track of what I'm going to do later on. It is now a process of repeating these steps until we have every image ready to go. Now, I have every image that I need, but I have them all in different layers, and they're all different sizes. I'm going to pick one image that will kind of be the image that I'm going to scale everything else to. I have this Steve on top, so he's going to be the one I'm going to start with. I'm going to rescale him so that his face fills up most of my frame. I can do that using the Move tool. That's up here in the top left corner. If your Move tool doesn't have this blue bounding box around it, come up to the top and click where it says Show Transform Controls. Once that's there, you can click and drag. Notice how I have dramatically distorted this Steve's face. That's not what I want. This image is going to look really weird when it's done, but I don't want it to be out of scale. This time, when I click and drag, I'm going to hold the Shift key. Notice how when I hold the Shift key, this Steve gets larger or smaller, but doesn't get squished. That's looking pretty good. All right, now it's time for me to start selecting my Steves. Coming up here, I have the rectangular marquee tool. And if I click and hold it, I also have the ellipse marquee tool. We're going to use these two tools to make a collage. I'm going to start with my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to pick a feature such as a nose, a mouth, or eyes or ears from this Steve to keep for later. I'm going to take Steve's mouth. Once I have my selection, it's time to copy and paste. You can go up to Image and you can go up to Edit and click Copy, or you can use the hotkey Control-C. Once I have that copied, I can make a new layer, and I can paste with Control-V or using the Edit command. I don't need this Steve anymore, so I'm going to click the visibility next to him and make him go away. The reason why I have copied out just his mouth and left the original images is if I want to change my mind, it's really easy to reactivate that layer and grab a new selection. All right, now it's time to grab my next bit of a Steve, and I have Steve Austin here. I'm going to use my move tool to move him in, and then I'm going to use that same move tool while holding the shift key to make him larger. This will help me get the approximate size right. All right, that's looking pretty good. A little bit more. Excellent. Now it's time for me to use my Marquee tool to select the next bit. I'm going to grab a nose. I can drag select, but it didn't come out that great. I'm missing parts, this part of his nose. So I'll come over and I'll select again. That's looking much better. I can use my hotkey Control C, and then I can make a new layer and make sure I'm on that new layer and Control V. Then I can turn off my Stone Cold Steve Austin. So far, I have a nose and a mouth. But I need a bit more than that. I'm going to move this mouth down a little bit and move on to my next Steve. My next Steve is a Carol, and he also needs to be larger than he is. Making sure I'm on the Move tool and clicking the layer that I want to edit, I can hold the Shift key and transform this Steve until he is the right size. That looks pretty close. I now need to choose the next bit of Steve that I want to copy out. Clicking my Marquee tool, I'm going to grab his ears. I have one ear. I'm going to copy that using the hotkey and make a new layer, and then paste the new layer there. But that's only one ear. I want another ear, so I'm going to come back with my Marquee tool and grab his other ear. I want to ensure I'm on the proper layer before I use Control C to copy, and then return back to my ears layer to paste. When I pasted on the new layer, it actually added a completely new layer, and this ear is on a different layer than this ear. That's okay. I'm not going to worry about that. All right, let's see. Let's turn off a few more of these, and I am down to a Steve Brussels, or however you say his last name.
Steve Buscemi.
Using the Move tool, I can adjust him over, and then holding Shift, I can make him larger. All right, he's got some hilariously awesome eyes, so that's what I'm going to select next. But the rectangular tool, it's just not doing it for me, so I'm going to try using the Ellipse tool. Using the Ellipse tool, when I click and drag, I will get an ellipse or a oval in the shape that I drag out. I'm going to copy, make a new layer, and paste the eyes in on that layer, then turn off that last Irwin. All right, turning off those eyes, I'm now down to my final Irwin, who will make the base upon which I will add everything else to. This Irwin also needs to be larger, so I'm going to use the Move tool, hold Shift, and make him larger. When I have his size about right, it looks a bit big, I can come up here and say, okay. Now it's a matter of positioning all the parts. But looking back over at my Layers tab, there's a lot of layers here. And in fact, it's getting a bit confusing what is what. And if I turn them all on, it doesn't really help figure out what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to take a moment and organize these to make the rest of this project super simple to finish. I'm going to pick my very top layer. I'm going to turn it on and off. All right, that's a nose. Double clicking the layer name, and I'm going to label it nose. Next up, I have a mouth. Then I have a person. I'm going to leave that one off. Next up, I have a person. I'm going to leave that one off. All right, I have an ear. Then this one is another ear. If you happen to double click and get this layer style, just hit cancel. We'll learn about that another day. All right, turn this Carol off. All right, I have a set of eyes. Turn this Brussels off, and there we go. I'm left with my Irwin. Now, I'm going to use the move tool, and I really want to make sure auto select is on, because that's going to make this so much easier. Now it's simply a matter of moving the parts around until they end up where they're supposed to be. Okay. We are most of the way there. What's still not quite right is some of these parts don't quite line up. So I'm going to click the parts that don't line up and use my Shift key to adjust their size till it looks a little bit better. We're not going to get quite perfect, and that is some of the joy of making this, is the slightly weirdness. Okay, you know, these eyes right here, they're kind of getting blocked by the nose. I can fix that by adjusting what is on top. If I want the eyes to be on top of the nose, over at my Layers tab, I need to find the eyes layer, click and hold it, and drag it until it is above the layer that I want it to be above. In this case, I want it above the nose. Make those eyes a little bit bigger. And that's looking fantastic. This is 5 Steves converted into 1. In this tutorial, we have learned how to copy some pictures from the internet, and using various marquee tools such as the ellipse or the rectangular ellipsed marquee tool, we have made a human collage.